We're going to call the meeting to order. The purpose of this meeting is to host a virtual town hall for the purpose of gathering public information for the purpose of updating the official community plan. Council is here to listen to your ideas, your suggestions, and to answer general questions about the process. Council is not here to make any decisions or pass any resolutions or resolve any problems. We would like to hear your ideas. Each person is asked to raise your virtual hand and to make a statement or ask a question, and the staff will be assisting by helping keep track and try to keep it running list as possible in order of priority. Please keep your comments and your questions brief to less than 2 minutes, and we'll be asking that everyone only speak until everyone's present and has the opportunity to speak. We have some resource people here as well, including Carl Neufeld, building inspector from SRD, to answer general questions, and the planning team from Urban Systems to provide some general information about the process and to listen. We also have our staff here to assist and listen. With that, I'd like to start the virtual town hall by asking each speaker to please state their name and note whether their interest in the process, i.e. is residential, valley residents, business, operator, taxpayer, etc. I'd like to remind you, we all began this meeting to discuss the future of Village of Seaward. It is not operational issues or concerns, rather than we're here to talk about your ideas for updating our official community plan. Staff will provide a rolling list of people to speak, and I'll call out your name. So again, please keep it under 2 minutes. And if there's more time at the end, we will get back to you. Thank you. So our first speaker, please. Pat Rush.
Okay, Pat Rush. I'm the Emergency Program Coordinator. I'm also a resident of the Valley, but my main purpose to be here is to see how the emergency program aspects of it will fit into this emergency plan.
Thank you. And we have another speaker. Who do we have here? We got Alex Turner.
Thanks, Mark. I want to, at the beginning, to say that I think this forum is not a good substitute for a real community hall meeting. When people are at a meeting, they have a chance to talk individually in small groups and exchange ideas, and I don't think this really takes the place of that. Having said that, in 2 minutes, I guess the question a lot of people have is what do they want in terms of the size of the village and whether or not they want growth here. When the Van Struth survey was done on economic development, it seemed that people wanted services like restaurants and a local store that we could walk to. In order to get that, you probably have to have more population. And so whether or not you want to develop in a direction that provides more population and provide bylaws that will encourage that is an enormous topic. And you know, I must say, I don't think you can really scratch the surface of much of anything in 2 minutes. And I've had my 2 minutes, so thank you.
I understand what you're saying, but due to COVID, Alex, we really don't have much choice but to do it this way because, of course, the restrictions are in place and we can't have a public forum. We will be having public forums. Matter of fact, several of them prior to the OCP being completed. So that will give everybody in the community the opportunity to be there in person and to talk amongst each other as well and bounce off those ideas. That will happen. CAO, you have your hand up?
Thank you, Mayor Baker. Actually, that's all I wanted to say is that there will be a public engagement phase coming up in the summer months, and hopefully the public health orders will be rescinded by then, but we're planning for all contingencies, but really this is just something we can do.
Thank you. Yeah. So I guess I should actually follow the proper protocol here, since this is a cow. So we're going to, should we jump over to actually doing the introduction of late items and reading off the agenda, CAO?
I think, Mayor Baker, what we need to do is just adopt the agenda and then move into the virtual town hall and then adjourn is probably all we need to do just for the protocol.
Okay, thank you. So approval of the agenda that the virtual town hall hosted by, the Committee of the Whole meeting for the council, May 11th, 2021 be approved. So for my council team,
I'll
do
move
I have a
that.
motion?
I'll
Second,
that.
got a second, thank you. Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, motion carried. Thank you. So now we're going to go back into the regular schedule program. Do we have another speaker, please? John McDonald?
What? Yes. I agree with Alex that it's better if we can have a town hall, but we can't. It's as simple as that. We can't right now because of the COVID restrictions. There's a lot of things I'd like to see happen with the village. I think is moving forward. Yes, we want more residents so we can have our store and we can have a few other services. But we have to look at our infrastructure before we could even think about going further ahead with the subdividing of properties and having a larger community come in. I know that the water, I believe, is good for another about 40 or 50 people in the village. I think that's what the numbers are, which means you're going to have to look at putting another tank up if we do get a larger population. If we don't get a larger population, we're dead in the ground. I really feel this. We are a bedroom community for Campbell River, and that's a fact that we just don't have a choice. But we're getting the people to come in, but all we're getting is mostly people that are retiring. And if we can't find jobs and have things for them or for the young people, we don't have anybody to perform the services. And that's one of the most important things is the services. Will we ever get a store? I don't know. You know, maybe we should just bulldoze that place and do something with it. But, I shouldn't talk that way. That's the way I feel sometimes. But the village has to work together. All the people in the village have to work together. We're all entitled to our own opinions about things. We have to be respectful of each other. And I think that this is one of the things that doesn't involve the OCP, but it involves a little bit of community action. But that's basically all I got to say. I know the OCP should have been done a long time ago. I'll take the blame for it not getting done. But we did do an amendment to it. I forget the year. But,
We're not here for that.
Pardon me?
We're not here to blame or.
No. I'm not. Hey, listen, I'm blaming myself. I'm not blaming anybody else.
No, I realize you don't
I
have
sat
to.
in that chair for a lot of years, and I don't have a problem with taking the crap for what went wrong. But also, there's a lot of things that went right. I think we got to do things with our pond, and we got to do things to make the village grow. That's it.
Thank you. We have a hand up. I got the initials of DC. Sorry, that's all I can see. So who is DC?
Debbie Coates.
Debbie Coates, you're on.
Thanks, Mark. It's Debbie Coates, a village resident. I'd like to see positive growth with development in our community. We all know that the island is growing. I believe that with residential growth, we will get economic development. We have a lot of young families that have moved into the community, and that's been a positive thing. And yeah, I would just like to see some more land open up for residential. And that way I think maybe the developer could help with the infrastructure for the properties. And I think it would be a positive thing for our community. Done in a slow fashion with regulations on perhaps what the subdivision would look like. So it goes along with the community plan and what Sayward has to offer as far as nature and the surroundings that we live in. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. Do I have anyone else who would like to speak? Mary Ruth, are you still there?
Yes, sir. Yes, I'm here.
Please go ahead.
All right. So I would just like to take the time to introduce myself. I am a new resident here in Sayward, and I am a renter, and I'm also the property manager for the house. The owner is the taxpayer, and so I do have his voice to speak on behalf of. But in addition, I am also the executive director for the Campbell River and District Chamber of Commerce, and heavily involved in everything that happens in the district as well as Campbell River. So there is a lot going on Vancouver Island. There is a massive housing crisis. So I think the number one thing that Mayor and Council should do is determine what the current capacity is for the current infrastructure. There's no point in setting up a system of, well, we want to build 100 houses if the facilities are not going to be able to handle that. So I think you have to, I would really recommend that you set your boundaries and then build the number of new houses based on what you feel the capacity is. Campbell River has just run into an issue with some houses that were built in the south of Campbell River. They built them, they were ready to occupy them, and now they've discovered that there's an issue with the sewer capacity. So those people that were waiting for those houses to be built cannot move in. 2 days ago, a condo in Tofino sold for $1 million over asking price. So when I say that there is a housing crisis on Vancouver Island, I'm not kidding. There is hundreds of people on every Facebook group from here to Timbuktu looking for housing on Vancouver Island, and they simply can't find it. So there is no question that you could absolutely have, you could fill up 10 subdivisions. There is that much desire to come to Strathcona Regional District, no question, especially Sayward with so much to offer. You would be another Cumberland. Cumberland is exploding, and it's all young families that are moving to the island for the sole purpose of the lifestyle and to raise their children. And because of the proximity to the mountains, you could absolutely be a second Cumberland. And they have grown exponentially over the last decade, and they're doing it well. They're doing it in a very managed way. So I would recommend maybe have a discussion with the current mayor of Cumberland, Leslie Baird, and she would be able to provide some very good insight about how they've been able to manage that growth. And I really do believe it starts with the capacity of the current infrastructure. Because if you build beyond it, you're just going to end up in a whole lot of trouble and cause a lot of grief for mayor and council in the next 18 months at the next election. So, and I'm happy to answer questions about tourism or ecotourism or the growth of that that's going to be happening on Vancouver Island, stretching out from Campbell River. And also, well, anything to do with the chamber, any of the businesses in Sayward or Sayward Valley are all eligible for chamber membership and benefits, and anything to do with the provincial chamber, the national chamber, I can assist with any of those questions or inquiries.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
I think what we're going to do going forward is have everybody mute. We're getting a lot of background noise. And then when it's your turn to speak, please put up your hand. Or if you have something to say. Thank you. So Do we have anyone else that would like to comment on the OCP or what you'd like to see here in Sayward? No, CAO. Oh, sorry. We have Alex Turner.
Mark, is it permitted at this point to have further comments?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I guess, getting some good focus here on the question of growth for the village and what the infrastructure capacity is. Some people are not aware that within the actual boundary of the village is a whole area up above the current settlement that is, I believe, owned by Island Timberlands. It's probably as large as the present area of the settled village. So there's a lot of room within the boundary of the village for further development if that we want that to happen. Certainly there's a space there, but I think how Island Timberlands looks on that and what their plans are for that property really would figure to a large extent into this story.
Thank you, Alex. I know that that's something that we are looking into. CAO?
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor Baker. I wanted to respond a little bit to Mary Ruth's comments because, as you know, I was the GM of planning in the regional district for about 7 years and worked with Cumberland. But the advantage of the regional district in the Comox Valley is that there's a regional growth strategy, and that growth strategy identified growth nodes, which of course Cumberland was one of them. And I guess the other advantage is Cumberland had a fair bit of land. And so, yes, they did invest in their infrastructure in order to sort of get over that threshold. But that's an option for us too. And we've been working on that with the planning team. We met today with Island Timberlands development arm, which is Couvrden, and have talked about their lands here, which we pitched as low-hanging fruit for them to actually develop. And of course, as former Mayor McDonald mentioned, we do need another reservoir would be really helpful to solve the water issue. I mean, there's no shortage of water. The shortage is with the infrastructure to store the water to get it to the treatment plant. And then, of course, we'd have to expand the septic facilities, which is all doable. But, it's a question. In my mind, an option would be to build the new infrastructure to develop the new growth, and then the new growth helps pay for replacement of the old development of the old infrastructure. So, there's only a few ways to come at it because of the numbers of households that we have, which is about 149. So, and yes, the asset management plan is, a little frightening when it lists the infrastructure costs, but so yeah, it is sort of a precipice for Sayward to be able to look at some of those options, but that's exactly the point of the community plan, is to bring all those pieces together and to try and bring in the partners. So in this case, the landowners, there's about 3 of them that we've been working with, and I'd like to ask Sydney and Jake to talk about this because they've done the bulk of the work on this so far, but it is a really good time to be looking at planning issues and housing related matters in Sayward because everything lines up, and that so rarely happens in planning.
Thank you. So can we have Sydney and your team jump in there, please?
Sure. This is Jake here. So I work with Sydney, Planner, and Courtney. And the comment about young families looking to move to the Valley. I have a number of friends that are looking at the Sayward Valley, and I think even my wife, if she had her way, we'd be looking at places up there. But again, there is definitely a shortage of housing options for people that are looking to move to the Valley. As Anne mentioned, we did have a meeting with Island Timberlands today to talk about their land holdings and what their plans are. And they were really excited to be a part of this process and learn a little bit about what Sayward would like to see and see if there's any sort of win-wins for the community and for them developing. They're doing a large development in Campbell River, the Jubilee development. So they are looking at developing some of their priority land holdings, across the island. And then, as Anne mentioned as well, there are some other large land holders up in and around the Kelsey Bay area as well that are looking at potential developments up there. But I don't know that it's advanced as far as a sort of a formal application or a development plan yet. It's still fairly early days, but there's a lot of people interested in potentially meeting that housing shortage. And then with regards to the infrastructure, that would be definitely part of the OCP, is looking at a high level what those limitations are on the current infrastructure and identifying what needs to be done, like Anne alluded to, a reservoir on the water side of things, and then what the strategy is to get that paid for. There's grants, there's taxes, there's then develop various tools for developers to pay for infrastructure, whether that's latecomer agreements, development cost charges, amenities. There's a whole bunch of tools, and some have pros. There's pros and cons to each one, and so part of the OCP is trying to figure out exactly what the best tool would be for Sayward to achieve its vision for the future.
Thank you. Sorry, Alex, you have your hand up again?
No.
Oh, sorry. See your hand there. CAO? You're muted. Sorry. And you're still muted.
It's always the hand.
Okay, there we go.
It's hard to get the
There we
hand down. That's the problem. It's hard to get the hand down.
Oh, it is, and I've got two screens and it doesn't want to move. So I just had my hand up from earlier, but I will jump in if nobody has anything to say. That is that we have the provision in the zoning bylaw for secondary suites in all of the village housing. And so that's one of the reasons I invited Carl tonight, because that's another opportunity. It brings a lot of positives to the community, although it doesn't provide for new infrastructure. So that's a real downside, but it does add people, numbers, which lead to other investment decisions. And it provides an opportunity for a sort of another vibe of people coming in and different housing options. So, or maybe it would be Airbnb or something. But I just throw that out there if we have a dull moment and we don't want to have anybody else wanting to talk about things. But I thought maybe Carl could give just a general overview of the kind of considerations from a building inspector's point of view to put in a suite, some of the requirements.
Okay. Carl, please.
Sure. So the building code has recently done a lot of amendment to secondary suites to make it somewhat easier for existing homes as far as fire separations go, and the interconnectivity of smoke detectors between the suites. So it would be quite boring for me to discuss it now, but it boils down to there being more choices. And the other thing that they have done as far as secondary suites go, they've introduced a sound transmission classification for secondary suites, which used to only be in apartments and duplexes and such. I imagine this stems from a complaint issue of more than anything else. So that seems to almost be the most onerous part of a secondary suite now, is updating the sound transmission with Resbar and insulation and such. So to go into the details of a 15-minute or a 30-minute or a 45-minute fire separation and the corresponding smoke detectors and such, you guys would all have your eyes closed within minutes, so I won't get into that right now. But it's an easy conversation to have, and what I'm in the process of doing is putting together a little 2-3 page brochure that Ann could then keep and hand out to people so they can make their own decision on how they want to address it.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Also, keep in mind, when we're talking about secondary suites throughout the community, it's still, for those people that are wondering, I mean, it still has to follow within what capacity we have in our infrastructure to house these suites. So it's not automatically the 149 homes are all going to have secondary suites, and we end up with another 300 people without that. So don't be concerned about that. Okay, so everybody's had their opportunity to speak. Would anybody like to add to their earlier comments or speak about what you've heard so far? Please put up your hand. We have Mary Ruth, please.
I just wanted to expand on the ecotourism piece. People exploring nature has become one of the best experience style vacations that people are now after, Europeans especially. And so Sayward is perfectly situated to be a location to house people for long periods of time, like 5 to 7 days, and offer day trips from Sayward. So you could stay in Sayward. You could spend one day exploring the trails here. The next day you could drive to Was and explore the mountain up there. The next day you could drive to Port Hardy and take a ferry across to Malcolm Island. You could take a day trip up to Telegraph Cove. You could do a day trip of shopping down to the Comox Valley, and then another day trip down to Campbell River and over Quadra Island. So Sayward is really perfectly positioned at the north end of the island to become the tourism hub, if you so choose.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any other comments? No? Okay, so it was the public question period and none. So at this point, I guess we're going to go to adjournment. Is that correct, CAO? Okay. Well, thank you. First of all, before we do that, I want to thank all of you for attending tonight. I know that it is problematic when we can't do this in person. We can't have a regular town meeting. However, the COVID numbers look like they're dropping, so that's encouraging. And, you know, hopefully by June, July, we'll be able to all get together and go through this. So thank you again, everybody, for attending. I appreciate that very much. And I know that the rest of council and staff appreciate it as well. So in saying that the May 11th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting will be adjourned. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I'll second it.
Discussion? Opposed? Hearing none, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you very much, folks.
Thank
Have a
you,
good night.
everybody.